Death Battle Season 10 has now come and gone, leaving us with one of the most objectively sound, borderline perfect seasons of Death Battle. Scratch that, it is from an objective point of view, the absolute best season of Death Battle so far. Back-to-back bangers, with most managing to be incredibly high quality and entertaining. So this is probably going to be long, but let's not waste any time. I have a very limited amount of time to get this done due to familial circumstances, so I'm trying to get this done in December and not out in January when people stop caring and only start focusing on what's about to come in the upcoming season. So everyone's busy in December. Hopefully I can be concise enough that this can actually be edited in time, because this is a time where people are likely to be really tired from all they have to do to prepare for celebrations and New Year's. And you know what you need? You need the sponsor of today's video, G Fuel, the fuel that is G. What does the G stand for? It stands for go get it now, or something. Do you want energy? Do you need antioxidants and caffeine? Do you not need calories, sugar, and carbohydrates? Well, available in tubs or cans in 50 flavors, this is your go-to cheat code in a can. We can just ask the combatants on Death Battle to tell us what they think about it. You should have a little G Fuel, relatively speaking.
Look-ta! This G Fuel powers my ability to dodge roll, certes it is worthwhile.
I will kill billions for my G Fuel. You underestimate me, myopic amoeba.
One of the most popular flavors of G Fuel is Blue Ice. If only I had a little G Fuel in my Death Battle, I'm sure I would have won.
Don't be so sure! I can always drink some myself! Oh man, this is actually really good.
Give me G Fuel. Go suck an egg.
You will die for this.
Aye, where's my G Fuel?
Uh-oh.
I heard you had G Fuel. Give it now.
Choco, Chibi, you Drongo, give me that G Fuel now.
Hey, give it to me now.
Want it? Come and get it.
I'm not even in this season and I want some.
I've been investigating. You have taken my G Fuel, Norin. It's my, John. Mine. Get back here, you booby.
G Fuel is so good, even I like it. And I'm British. We don't like anything. So I can have some G Fuel, right?
Stay dead.
So as you can see, everybody loves G Fuel, and you will too once you head to the link in the description and use code BLOODRIGHT for 20% off your order. Remember, G Fuel contains caffeine. Don't drink it if you're under the age of 18, and make sure you drink it responsibly if you are. What's that going on up there?
Proceed on your way to oblivion.
Oh dear. Okay, we can begin the ranking now. Kinda. Let me get it out of the way. I have not and will not watch Frieza vs. Megatron. If you have a problem with that, with me not wanting to associate with a matchup to which I have endured 2 years worth of harassment from countless people, then too fucking bad. Cry about it. I genuinely don't care. I have nothing nice to say, and nothing I've seen gives me any indication that the episode is what I want for a Megatron death battle. It looks like a Dragon Ball fight, and that's not what Megatron does. All what I can say is that somewhat this episode is why I was able to say some words directly to Little Karibo at one point. Voice of Frieza and creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, which is one of the biggest inspirations to me as a creator. The man himself is a huge influence, and part of why I even really began YouTube. So thanks Death Battle, I got to thank someone who I've always wanted to thank, even if it had to be in these circumstances. Okay, now we can begin.
Bird.
I can't fucking stress how much every other season wishes its worst episode was Phoenix vs. Raven. This is at the bottom of the list, and it has some banger elements to it still. Every season has at least one episode that I look at and I just don't like. But this season instead decided to put its minimal quality into something that looks like this. That's where the episode gets off shitting on the other worst episodes of past seasons. It looks so good. Raven's soul self, Jean's Phoenix, the effects in the final clash, the shot of Jean trying her hardest to survive only to be reduced to kindling and blown out with a puff of breath. Jean violent death farting her way out of the mine dungeon. Wow. So why is it at the bottom? Well, there are a few reasons. For one, I just really don't like the analysis. Not only do I think the overall coverage of story, character, and verses is pretty weak just on a writing standpoint, it also has the worst editing of the season, and does not engage or interest me. It's a whole lot of whole pages sliding around with the same transitions and the lamest possible edit to introduce one of the most powerful forms in the entire show's history. But the fight is also pretty boring. It has some cool stuff beyond visuals. Primarily, I think the progression is great between Phoenix breaks out of Raven's mind cage, which damages Raven's mind just enough that her evil side takes over and cuts Phoenix in half, which makes her embrace the darkness to survive and go ham. Then Phoenix fucking vapes Raven, which allows her to break from her physical bonds and go golden, where she takes away the darkness in Phoenix and actually forces her into White Phoenix, bringing them to the Come dimension. That's all really good. But like, the actual stuff in the fight is really forgettable. Phoenix does have a ton of powers, but Lord knows she doesn't fucking use them here. Raven carries the fight, aside from a few shots. She does all the cool stuff with her powers. The time freezing, the sword, the telekinesis even. While Phoenix, despite them droning on about her powers, just does fire and some clones that mean less than Alien X's attempt at the same. And the ending does leave a weird taste in my mouth, and it's not because of all the cum. It's because the whole time Raven apparently had the dap me up rings on her booty cheeks, which once used allow her to instantly win. So Raven didn't even need to go dark or go golden. At any point, if she just fished these out of her pocket like 450 and change, she would have instantly won no matter what Phoenix did. And when they're actually in the thick, steamy jizz realm, Phoenix fires one beam that doesn't hit Raven, and literally in the next scene, it's gone as Raven drops a fat one. Where did it go? Phoenix made a big deal of charging up and unleashing her Goku juice only for it to vanish frame 1. Like, did they forget to include the effect in this shot? That might be it. Still, this fight does look very pretty, and that is its saving grace. It's not the only episode like that this season, but unlike that episode, it isn't blowing my mind with its looks, even if Raven does have the best hair in the show.
If you were looking at shit, would you be talking about butterflies or something?
Strangely enough, Ant-Man vs. the Atom of all episodes has one of the most memorable sequence of edits in the entire season to me. Even now, like 15 fucking episodes later, these analyses are some of the most visually interesting ones in the season, which is so strange to me to say, but I love these edits and how the panels come to life. DJ had a statement to make when he did this, and by God, even stuff in this episode that you might consider bad editing, like Adam's shuffle walk, are funny enough to overcome any, well, technically it doesn't look great allegations, because it's funny. In fact, despite how generally uninteresting the analyses are in terms of engaging me with the characters, the editing is just that good that I actually kind of like them. And this is a Marvel DC episode that I remember, though engaging me with the characters is not necessarily something that Ant-Man's analysis did wrong. I mean, first of all, I like some of the ant name puns, that's great, but, you know, despite how unfunny I found the cutaway gag, looking back across the season's cutaways, I kind of just appreciate that there isn't any obviously distracting joke. It just kind of feels like a slower paced and less funny season 2 gag. Which I say in a very backhanded way, but trust me, I do prefer the actively unfunny ones. But really, massive props to how well the iconic wife slap was handled. For such an important but also very demonizing scan, they did a fantastic job of dealing with it, and the actual context and how broken Hank was throughout the entire story, the way he came back from it, improved and returned to being a true hero. I actually think this has a fantastic blend of story and verses. It's really quite engaging, which is pretty cool, and I feel like the editing helps a lot with that. Adam's analysis is also really good. While Raymond definitely didn't get the same level of dedication and care to his story, frankly nobody cares about or knows him well enough to be able to point it out if there was any major enough story that should have been mentioned. I do find it funny though that Wiz gets a full explanation from Hank that makes no sense and questions the sense of it, while Raymond gets no explanation and makes no sense, but he acts like it's sensible. Adam really got the better end of the versus stuff though, which does at least somewhat balance out how Hank got the better end of the story and character stuff. More or less best of both worlds if you take the analyses as a combined package, which you should. I do wish the punchline from Wiz at the end of his cutaway was better, because I like the build up and it is what it is. The fight though is kind of where more problems come in, though it doesn't have any majorly egregious things aside from Hank coming off as significantly smarter, but only in the sense that Raymond comes off a bit stupid. Raymond just shows up breaking into Hank's office for the purposes of politely asking a question, and then Hank, being a kind of volatile guy, kind of just picks a fight. I kind of like the little dialogue at the start, and I want to like their constant bickering over their ideologies and how they view science, but it definitely could have used a bit more cooking. The voice acting wasn't anything to write home about, relatively speaking, but overall, outside of one sequence where Raymond for some reason makes a huge deal of breaking down a very minor weapon of minimal significance, Adam doesn't really come across well here. Hank gets off better, he outsmarts Raymond at basically every turn and is only very briefly on the back foot at one point. That said, the actual, fighting is surprisingly decent, or maybe not surprising, this matchup had a lot to offer, but it has a few funny moments interacting with the small world, some fun fiddling with their sizes, and the ending portion is cool. It's just I don't know, Adam fighting with a sword against ants was kind of whatever, and I like the interaction in this moment, Hank trying to seem smart for no reason, and Raymond just kind of not being sure what the fuck he's on about. When they're actually small though, and it's a gunfight, I don't know, it's just not interesting. I definitely wish they brought up the super important Ant-Man multi-tool that gives him access to infinite gadgets, and made that what Raymond broke, because then it'd make a lot more sense why it was emphasized. But the ending is cool. They got around Raymond not being able to grow higher than his normal height, which I forgot was a Crisis only power back when I hyped up this matchup, whoops, by having them be big within the world of the microverse, and showing us the limitations of Raymond's powers compared to Hank's when it came down to the growing thing, with Raymond growing too fast and leaving himself open, and then Hank taking it to a space Raymond could never reach and comprehend. And of course we get one of the gnarliest, coolest deaths ever, arguably still the best death in the season. Absolutely fantastic ending, and also still love how they went through the effort of making Hank's helmet change depending if he's small, normal, or giant. It is kind of weird that Hank brought Raymond to the overspace for no reason though, like it didn't help him. Still, a decent fight, could have used more Raymond being smart, but that's an everyday occurrence to me. And, you know, maybe a bit more playing around with tiny size things being giant now, but no glaring flaws really. It's a good episode, I'm actually kind of shocked I had so much to say about it.
I will beat the living spark out of you, just so I never again have to endure your pontificating!
Martian Manhunt vs. Silver Surffucker is a pretty decent episode. It has more problems to me than Ant-Man Atom, but makes up for it by having much higher highs. Overall, I love the start and end of the fight. It's visually really nice looking, which for this season is about as special as having a winner. In other words, there's like one episode that doesn't fit. The two look great, and I can't get over how fucking gorgeous the rigging in this part of the fight is. I'm going to flum. The sun also has never looked better on Death Battle. I actually think the effects and heat around the characters makes the sun look better than it looks in even Galacticron. And while the waxing poetic was kinda shallow to me and didn't offer much of anything, it was a neat way to end the fight, and gave more characterful interaction than we normally get from your standard cape shit fly around wacky pew pew fight, which is honestly what most of this episode was. Like, it's just a very standard, boring fight aside from the two perspective shots and the ending and beginning. They dropped the unique style for the fight almost immediately, which bothers me, but really, this fight is good. I definitely didn't get anything emotional from the ending, but like some people did. What brings the episode down is the analysis. They front-loaded all the Versus stuff all of a sudden at the start, and they gave a very shallow plot rundown after, which is just a strange way to go about it. The story stuff is okay, good in fact on Manhunter's side, but Versus stuff was really left to dry, especially for Surfer. And to me, I don't want an episode to feel either just like a Versus Wiki article or just a Wikipedia synopsis. I'm here to see a good blend and balance of the two, but this was just a shallow retelling with a few offhanded mentions of Versus that made it incredibly underwhelming on both sides, with a really, really bad conclusion. They just sort of explain Surfer winning as he does the power cosmic without elaborating on that really well. It'd be like cutting out all the examples of counters that Wally had against Sonic and replacing it solely with the because Speed Force joke. It's generally a good episode, but doesn't stick with me.
Who the fuck is this?
From what I gather, this is the main fan choice for worst episode of the season, and yeah, I definitely understand why. Not only am I aware that a lot of people simply weren't invested, but there's a reason it doesn't rank too high for me either. The analysis is forgettable. While the editing is solid, Killua's analysis overall is pretty whatever. I don't know, it feels kind of like it jumps all over with the story and character, while also not doing much for Versus. Misaka's frankly isn't too great either. Its format is more standard and thus like good, but it's very unremarkable. Like yeah, the editing is still good, probably more interesting than Killua's edits, and the analysis was definitely more engaging and more interesting to learn about, but it just wasn't doing anything for me. And frankly, the animation still has plenty of problems. Mostly there's a lot of bad posing that doesn't convey any character or dynamicism, with a lot of shots looking a bit daft. That said, while visually it can look very flat, I actually like the choreography going on here. There's a lot of their powers interacting and them trying to get around the other's abilities just to open their opponent up for one blow they need to win. Like, you can get pretty well the idea that Misaka is just trying to leave Killua open for a setup shot. Like using a tornado to try and keep him boxed in one place, or tying him up and sending him over the edge of a building so he'd have no leverage to dodge, or just firing the biggest, most fuck-off blast she can. The Killua side is a little less interesting when he's really just trying to get close, but like, he does, and then Misaka's able to hold him off anyway because he never attempted an instant win attack. It's weird. But the whole side of the building fight is kinda not great anyway. But it's okay. It leads into the fucking Kaijin showing up, which is absolutely sick and looks great. The shot of the power going out, the thing standing up, the shot of it blasting the tower in half, but especially the shot of Killua rocketing into the sky above it. And then we get what some considered a good fake out, but I felt was a bit too obvious. This episode would have a fake out, so like, obviously. Misaka dying a cringe looks hilarious though. Start to end, it's a solid, short, fun package with mediocre visuals, but some really good ones, and solid choreography that I found relatively engaging. Plus, Misaka turns Killua into a coin. I mean, what's not to love?
Where he can just has unlimited energy.
Oof. This one hurts to put this low. Cole vs. Alex, if we were measuring on animation alone, would likely rank 4th on this list, because I love this animation to death. It feels basically perfect. It has everything I could have wanted. A fun usage of their different powers for creative interactions, great shots like Cole rail grinding on a tendril, Alex tearing a building up just by running on it, Cole spinning around or ripping Alex's neck to toss him, basically the entire ending, with a story that's as simple as can get but also as complex as you need for these characters. There's cheesy edgelord dialogue that's perfectly delicious and matches them amazingly, and really good progression as Alex grows biomass from eating people to show off his evil side while evolving into his Prototype 2 look, and then further evolving at the end into a monster that shrugs off any of Cole's standard attacks, while Cole uses powers designed to build up good karma, eventually allowing him a karmic overload at the perfect moment to break out of Alex's absorption and use his own back on him. The music plays in perfectly, they run around the sandbox environment a lot, which is great. There's subtleties like how Alex only uses his powers designed for one-on-one combat while in his Prototype 1 state, then goes into the ones that aren't meant for that in his Prototype 2 Evolved state to reflect how he developed those for single combat in his boss fight in the second game. He throws helicopters like in his fight, and Cole responds with a tornado, the interactions are gold, the effects are gorgeous, the choreography is on point, and I fucking love how the music plays into it. Even as so much as their regenerative abilities being represented well specifically to them, and the effects and Alex in the building is a better horror moment than literally anything else in the show, including all of its actual Halloween episodes, and it ending with them plummeting down all the height they gained moving through this fight all the way to where they started as Cole crashes down and saves the world, giving us a message of hope that no matter how bad the world is, nothing can be gained from trying to make it worse. It's all here. It's basically a perfect animation for these two. Everything I wanted. But my god, it has one of the worst modern analyses in general, with some of the least funny jokes and unintentional feeling of spite towards older seasons that people still love for reasons that it almost feels like the writers just didn't understand. In fact, overall, there's no understanding of those old seasons in this script. MCU Twitter tier-ass jokes and some of the worst cutaways since the Mikasa fart. It feels like nothing like what it was trying to feel like. It ends up being just a half-hearted, unfunny, cringeworthy analysis that I hate sitting through. Alex's is somewhat okay around the end, but Cole's is awful the whole way through to me. It's amazing how much I don't like this analysis, and anyone who thinks this accurately represents the script from Season 2 as it seemingly is trying to be, has probably either never watched or doesn't remember those episodes. The actual most mixed bag of an episode.
I would have waited an eternity for this.
Galactus vs. Unicron is without a doubt one of the best looking episodes the show has ever done. I think anybody contesting that is either wrong, lying, stupid, or watched it on 240p. If you took almost any individual frame from this animation and stuck it on your wall as a poster, nobody would think it wasn't an official poster of some kind. It's insane how good this looks. I'm convinced that the episode was actually fully completed back in Season 7, and it just took this long for the animation on the computer to finish fully rendering. Because, my god, look at it! Unicron is so shiny and gorgeous, with the shading and lighting being breathtaking, the stars, the galaxies, the universe, the way the sky shatters, shakes and crumbles, the way the effects glow, the black hole in the back, quasars and nebulas, this shot of them fighting in the stars. You cannot escape the fact that this fight is one of the best visually looking works of internet production, period. I do mean just in general. There are few internet original works I've seen that are in the same tier as this. In fact, this is pretty inarguably amongst the best looking works to ever come out of Rooster Teeth, period. Maybe outright the best looking. This looks better than the Netflix show that Unicron was a cameo in. So why is it down here? Look, if you know me, you basically know that nothing else about this fight works for me. The fight is kind of boring outside of his looks and scale. It's just punching and lasers. These two have so much they can do that just wasn't utilized. The dialogue from Unicron is amongst the worst in the show to me, capturing nothing I love about what he is and just sounding like G1 cartoon Megatron dialogue with how Saturday morning cartoon villain he sounds. And if you think that fits him, then you do not know Unicron. Like, nothing that happens flows or feels like it happened for more reason than because it did. It just isn't an interesting fight to me once the novelty of how good it looks dies down. And to me, a fight looking good should be a bonus to how good the fight actually is, and that's what lets the episode down to me. I'm not someone who can be appeased by just the thing looking gorgeous if the content itself isn't great. You can polish a refrigerator all you want, but no matter how good it looks, if I can get an ugly looking but much higher quality fridge with more utility, I'm gonna buy it, regardless of how much I cannot see my reflection in the door. Still, I mean, how can I look at this and not place it at least here? Regardless of how boring I find the choreography and how badly I think Unicron was represented, the fight looks so fucking amazing, and that's as undeniable as finality itself.
Time travel! What?
Rick vs. the Doctor is a fun episode. The analysis was great, making Rick interesting enough that I almost wanted to check out the show, and the Doctor really covers the stuff I love about him from the one episode I watched. It does a lot to focus on their smarts and gadgets over power and stats, which is great. The fight too is great. It looks good, though I still haven't come around to liking the Doctor's look. I don't know, it doesn't work. But it's cool. I love how the Doctor is characterized. He doesn't ever directly attack Rick, he only defends himself. He hesitates to use the fuck off gun, and he sees what most would call an obnoxious screaming sun, but instead basks in the beauty of endless forms most beautiful. All of the Doctor's lines are great, and it's just a fun animation. That said, it definitely has some flaws that hold it back. Mostly, I don't like Rick's vocal performance. He sounds like the character from what I've heard, but his line reads just don't work. They feel like they have the wrong emphasis and almost like there was minimal direction. I also think the editing is a little confusing upon rewatch. The portals don't seem to work like a portal gun or anything. Like even the analysis cutaway gag, the two-shot portals aren't interconnected. So why are these ones? Where did the portal in the Doctor's back come from? And perhaps most importantly, why was Rick running from this portal if he would have just popped out the Doctor's back as they're apparently linked? What? It's a weird ending, even if I like the creativity of it, and the Doctor's ending line to Morty and even us the viewer is great. But, you know, Rick vs. the Doctor is very solid and fun. Has a few glaring issues that hold it back from being one of the season's biggest bangers, but it's still really good.
Hey Wiz, what's half of infinity? Infinity!
Gojo vs. Makima to me is everything Killua vs. Misaka wants to be, and I don't just make the joke because of the whole white-haired anime guy versus red-haired anime girl thing, and, you know, the jokes made about them being the same matchup that led up to the episode's released. I mean that to me, this is also a battle between two characters I don't know from two series I haven't watched or read, but this time I actually found myself really interested. In Gojo's side, because Makima's analysis, it still feels a bit weird to me. Gojo's is fine, Gojo's is great, I really want to check out Taijutsu Improvement, but it's really the fight that gets me here. It's so full of character. There's minimal of the posing and sprite issues that Misaka vs. Killua had, and I love the power interactions because they're so different and thus it's interesting. There's so much personality, even in so much as just the first interaction with Limitless. Makima seems barely phased, maybe a bit nonplussed, while Gojo's just a dick. Fantastic, and they shit a man to death. Gojo steals the show obviously, but Makima has her moments. Death Battle tends to not give a lot of scenes breathing room and kind of speed runs through stuff, but they did pause and give the right amount of time for us to really let it sink in that Gojo just got shot through his power, and Makima goes ham on him. But like, that's nothing compared to the leg heal up to the slick as fuck domain expansion animation and delivery. It just looks so good. The whole ending is awesome, as Gojo has unleashed the power of popularity and Amogus, and now releases the Bite of 87 attack to finish it off. To be honest, I am realizing I don't have much to say beyond that. It's a fight that vibes with me, it looks good, it sounds good, it's got really creative and interesting choreography. Great conclusion. I don't know why I speed ran through that paragraph. What else is there to say?
Come on, I know it's just dangling out the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
Superman will never.
Goku vs. Superman went through quite a journey. From the episode that a lot of people thought shouldn't happen, to one of the most anticipated of the season, to one of the season's fan favorites. Yeah, it's good. Goku vs. Superman is a good episode, but it really doesn't feel like it hits me in all the best places. That sounds wrong, that sounds horrible. That said, it's still up here, which might not initially seem that high, but given the competition, this is a very high rank. Goku's analysis is great, but of course it was going to be great. Superman's was shockingly great. Didn't expect it to be this great. There's two really great analysis segments that show a lot of love and passion with amazing editing, and I still can't get over that solar flare edit. God damn! It's so good. But yeah, the big showstopper is the fight, which I personally didn't get as much out of as a lot of people, because a lot of it kind of just amounted to really pretty action, which I've already said is not something I care about anymore compared to character interactions and power trading. But this episode does have some great ones of those. Goku complimenting Clark and him being kind of a dork about it, them reacting to the destruction they caused, and especially the ending. My god, the ending! This is where the battle looking good does matter. I don't think anything this season looks as good or even a quarter as hype as the fucking full-cum Goku Kamehameha against a sun-dipped Superman flying from the other end of the galaxy straight through it. Goku powering up into Kaioken and then even summoning the giant Avatar to show his refusal to go down and his endless tenacity and willpower, collapsing all of reality as they make their impact, shattering everything, and then ending closely. They stand together, fists bumped, giving each other as much respect as they deserve. Friends, allies, heroes. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful ending, and full of fun references and love, and also Cosmic Armor Superman showed up in this fight, which is crazy. And yeah, like, the fighting is cool. Ultra Instinct, when it isn't just speedy lines flying through the air, has some cool shots. Superman slicing the mountains is cool, and frankly, the only part that doesn't look too visually stimulating is the kind of boring looking solar flare. Goku's transformation into blue is cool, and into Ultra Instinct too. I do wish Superman got to do a bit more. Man has many heat vision segments, but never uses his frost breath. Like, I understand not wanting Superman to use many of his out there weird powers, and they even did manage to work in his phasing, but I feel like Frost Breath could have been used. It's one of his most iconic. Like, he could have frozen the Ki Blast that was shot towards him, you know, to show how his Frost Breath kind of is able to do just impossible shit for what's essentially a really strong air conditioner in his mouth. But it is what it is. Love the voice acting too. Kovac and Mobus did great, and sneaking in the original episode's voice actors as cameos was fantastic as a choice. I love it. This episode is an absolute banger. It doesn't really hit all the notes that I look for in a fight to be one of the best of the season to me. I want fights that are creative and unique in their choreography, not just good looking but solid, which is what this episode was to me. But I could not in any good faith deny its rightful place in the tier of absolute bangers, and yes, we are barely past the halfway mark, and we've hit the absolute banger tier. Good God, what a season.
And you're supposed to be dead.
I got better?
I remember when Skyrim vs. Dark Souls was expected to be an early peak of the season. Oh, how naive we were. It's still an absolute peak specimen of an episode though. Not flawless, but still fantastic in most regards. I love both analysis segments. Maybe Dark Souls has a bit of spotty tone issues with some really not all their jokes and a few too many things that I looked at and went, oh, that's clearly a reference I don't understand. That didn't work. But when it's good, it's good. The intro is great, but the ending is what really takes it away. It really gives some depth to the world, which is important because neither combatants here are really characters. So in its place, Jocelyn sort of out of nowhere really goes all in on the world, the story, the themes, how they relate to the undead. The somber tone is amazing, and aside from that one ending line in Galactus vs. Unicron, I don't think any analysis ended with anything rawer than, it was never about the happy ending, it didn't exist. And that they still gave some hopeful energy to it, that despite the ending being meaningless, the journey still had value, is pretty admirable. But more than anything, I love how it contrasts with Skyrim's analysis. One goes into the lore of a dark fantasy franchise, the other into the lore of a high fantasy franchise. One is about the themes, the darkness, what horrors lurk in the night, and what stares back at us the moment we begin to think there's nothing there. The other is about silly shit, goofy things, and the absurd scope and insanity of what's going on. I actually like how the hosts argue between each other about what choices they should make for Skyrim, while in Dark Souls they instead talk about well, not that, because it doesn't matter apparently. Skyrim's analysis is overall super fun. It doesn't have as many tonal problems to me because it's never taken itself super seriously, and everything has a much more fun and goofy vibe. And they have the amazing cheese calc, so you know it's right as shit. Then the ending is fucking sick, though Boomstick singing did kind of ruin the epicness of the climax after all that build up. This leads to a fight that definitely suffers in the visual department and has a bit of jank and a few weird things about it, but overall remains a stunner. The setup definitely feels like it's lost on me, having not played either game much, but I've gotten the idea from a few people since the episode came out, and I think with that context it still works. Just the Dragonborn sent to take out the chosen undead as a quest, which, given the undead can either be good or bad, seems fitting. And the whole fight has such an epic tone to it, with my favourite track this whole season, Fireborn, blasting in the back. With an epic choir and some of the hardest lyrics I've heard in the whole series. It has an amazing feeling of being some folk song passed down through the ages, centuries after the fight took place. It's almost like we're not even watching how the fight went down, but we're watching a visualization of how the fight has been interpreted by the culture of those singing about it years after, which as a big mythology buff really works for me and fits into the lore-heavy nature of the characters, franchises, and matchup. Sure, it has jank, definitely. I get why the rolling looks weird and all, but the joke doesn't work for me, and I've seen some high-level Dark Souls gameplay that looks insane. So I just wonder why we didn't get that. But the fight uses so many abilities, with fantastic flow between what happens. Everything feels like it leads into the next thing, like it makes sense and is just what would happen. They even worked in an arrow to the knee joke that isn't intrusive, and there's just no end to raw moments. The Dovahkiin screaming at an arrow heading towards him to stop it, the undead's helmet reflecting his opponent in the flickering flames, the Dragonborn telling his foe to fuck off as he calls down lightning to blast him, only for that very foe to tear the lightning from the skies and crash it down upon him, leveling the area and leading to what is still one of the most breathtaking shots in the whole season. Yes, even with how gorgeous Galacticron was, this remains up there to me simply because of the vibe it gives off. It feels like some ancient mythic depiction of a great significant event, like a biblical mural in the modern day, leading to a genuinely hype as fuck sword fight. The amazing vow of silence bit as all sound is lessened and the chosen undead drags himself through a blade sunk through his flesh just to bring him towards the Dragonborn and snarl at him just as the vow of silence ends. But in this moment of hubris, he makes the Dovahkiin fully aware that he once again can unleash the power of his voice and knock the undead back. The ending though is unfortunately probably the main thing that lets me down about this episode. I get the linking the fire and the dialogue helps to make that understood, but it ends very suddenly. The Dragonborn seems barely bothered and he uses the same shout soundbite that was already used at the literal start of the fight and was easily blocked by a shield to destroy the first flame that powers the universe and that the Undead seemingly thought would be enough to win. Like, he looks like he just sneezed and accidentally won, barely even trying. The music doesn't even rise as I would have expected to sell this moment, just a few seconds showing the Dragonborn writhing in the pain of the fire, his flesh searing, and then using either a different soundbite or even recording one of their own to really sell that the Dragonborn is shouting with all of his might is all it'd take to make this bang. But here it honestly just seems like a slightly prettier looking version of He-Man vs. Lion-O's ending. But man, it's not enough to bring this episode lower. I want to place it higher even though I frankly just don't feel like I can. The vibes of this fight are impeccable. I love fantasy, it's my favorite setting genre of media, and it feels flawlessly executed in this episode. Stunning, amazing work. Liam deserves to cook up a whole banquet. No, there was no mistake in the numbering nor in the beginning. I have watched Guts vs. Dimitri, so it's time to see what I've been missing out on. I've been missing out on a banger, what a surprise, it is Season 10. I definitely think it's maybe a little overhyped, but let's tackle it point by point. Guts' analysis is really good, but I really could have gone without another fucking hunk of raw iron comment. I know it's only the second time Death Battle have done it, but like, I've seen it done on basically every Versus show that uses Guts and every video that brings up Dragon Slayer. Yes, it's a cool line, but come on now. Other than that, I think Guts' analysis was great. I would have liked if they talked more about how much he actually hates what he is, and that he hates how he sees himself as someone only good at killing and bloodshed, but it's a great analysis. Dimitri's meanwhile I think had both a few better jokes, I actually found them poking fun at his magic stat really amusing, but also some more sort of weird pacing and tone. I don't know, them bringing up the different parts at the end felt a bit abrupt when they already established that he doesn't go well in the alternate ones earlier, and it could have been left at that with a actually pretty good cutaway gag. Otherwise, it was cool learning about this absolute dork dumpling. But yeah, the fight is what you want to know my opinion on, and my first thought is, does Dimitri really talk this cringe-like? Like, all of his lines were just, this guy's a fucking dweeb. Like, what drives your slaughter? And some of his other lines just made me go, this guy is a loser! Meanwhile, Guts has some pretty cool lines, but I'm just not big on his voice. It's goated to see Xander Mobius back, but he didn't really capture the gruffness and deeper tone I associate with Guts from his dubbed performances. Though on the topic of how bad the fight sounds, it's hilarious to me how much better the sound design here is than Berserk's infamously bad anime seasons. In fact, the animation itself is better too. The camera angles, the camera tracking, the weight of each motion, especially from Guts, really sells the power these two have on hand. It feels impactful, especially when Guts falcons Dimitri with the flat of his sword and the sound dies a bit for a second, even if the blood looks a bit shit. But let's be real, everything was kinda leaning on the Berserker armor moment being great, and it is. Both the build-up with a physically crippled Guts still throwing out more shoes and using his mouth to fire his arm cannon even in this state, the fire around Dimitri bringing back his demons and the beast in black tempting Guts now that his body is too weak to fire on its own, their matching monologues and madness moments as they maliciously moonsault into their massive marauder modes. It's actually here that I think Xander starts doing a really good job as Guts. But like, given how he did in the past with some of his roles, it feels like just sounding like a feral beast is kind of what Mr. Morbius is good at. And we somehow get the best fake out of the season, except it's literally not even a fake out. Like, the fake out is that it's not a fake out, and Dimitri really did finish off Guts here. Hilarious. The ending though, I like it in concept, but there are some problems I have with the actual pulling off of it. Like, it's very abrupt, and not in the way that I think would have worked. It's very much, this happened. Guts just swings and stops, and Dimitri makes a comment, and the music fades out, and then Dimitri runs over to fight a demon. Like, I thought that obviously the much better way to do this would have been to have more build-up for Guts' final swing. Really make it look like it would have been a proper finishing blow to get people ready for the surprise loss. And then when he freezes in place, have the entire track stop. Like, the music shouldn't fade out, it should just abruptly end, just as abruptly as Guts' own life. That's what I would have done. Instead of just this shot and then this shot, I would have put in an extra shot of showing Guts with his face very briefly with the whited out eye, lifting the sword over his head and bringing it down full force, only for it then to suddenly stop. It makes no sense physically, but it doesn't make sense physically here either, and it's cooler that way. And like, Dimitri continues having just the cringiest sounding lines ever, to the point where it makes me think like, maybe this is just a character thing with him. Still standing, we're both shackled to the dead, you shall not have his soul. I don't know, it sounds very much like we need to make the audience aware of what's happening, so just have the character announce what he's thinking out loud. Also would have liked if the Berserker armor and full cringe powered Dimitri had a longer, more prolonged mad flailing of limbs instead of immediately cutting to some very small blood spurts. But this doesn't stop the episode from being as good as it is. Look at how highly I've placed it. While the ending didn't really work for me because it was too abrupt and had no breathing room, it was a cool concept, and the overall fight is really solid. It had all the building blocks to run up the spots for me, but sort of had a rushed feeling ending, and everything about Dimitri and some weird choices brought it down to just being just a banger. The model clash is also weird. I don't think any other episode in this season had that, but like that might have been unavoidable.
What? My mother was a saint! Get out!
Let me indulge myself here. In no world do I think Stitch vs. Rocket is objectively this high. It has a lot more problems than most episodes up here. For instance, the editing on Stitch's analysis is a little weird. There's a lot of just odd edits, and sometimes what's said is not the same as what's shown, but at least the cutaway was neat. Rocket's editing has a few neat edits, but kind of is mostly just entire pages, which is also not great. The fight is not perfect, it doesn't have too many standout moments, Stitch never gets to say a word in English, which is a bit sad. I would've liked something in his gremlin tongue. And the ending is kinda wonky, with the issue of like spatial consistency, with Rocket aiming in the wrong direction logically, and Stitch just sort of hovering in the air with us never seeing the blast actually hit him, he's just being hit suddenly, and then him surviving perfectly fine despite what the conclusion sets up. And yeah, there's not a lot of the episode, but the thing is, what's here is fun, and I like it. Rocket and Stitch have a fun dynamic, the music is laid back and silly and gives the episode a fun vibe, and while it doesn't have too many notable moments, when all the turrets go ham on Stitch with him running around hilariously and Rocket just vibing, that's pretty great. And yeah, you can say that Rocket felt way smarter than Stitch, like Hank to Raymond. The difference though is that this kinda just is how Stitch is. Like yeah, he's a genius, but he'd rather act like a gremlin and be pragmatic with his smarts. When he needs them, he'll use them to, build a flying rocket knife, but otherwise he'd kinda just monkey swing his way through. I also love the idea that Stitch noticed Rocket's space station of weapons and chose to aim perfectly to launch him there while disabling it, because that's the sort of blunt force utilization of his smarts that Stitch would normally use. I don't know, it's not a deep episode or anything, but I love Stitch. He's one of my favorite characters this season. It definitely probably shouldn't be up here, but it is my list.
I recognized your foul stench as soon as I was brought on board.
Actually that's me. I made a Darth duty.
If anyone thought I judged episodes on their matchups, this is the evidence against that. I do not care at all for this matchup, but fuck me is this a great episode. Vader's analysis does have a problem with how little it really offers Vader in terms of his power set, and it kind of misses a lot of really interesting and cool abilities with the Force, and bashing on his suit was kind of weird too, but I love how it handles a lot of the story, starting with Vader going backwards in time and leading back up to Vader, plus they use the fucking Ewoks feat, which is amazing. Obito's analysis I still think is perfect. Like, going over the story, power set development, and character, it's exactly what I'd want for Obito, or better. The writing overall is fantastic for the episode. Editing is also good as usual, but I didn't feel like there were as many memorable edits, which makes sense when you think about it, because tons of the edits usually as a result of minimal media to work with, while here there's so much. Plus, it's not bad in the slightest, and also ERB. But the fight! Oh my god, the fight. This is still one of my favorite looking fights of the season. Yeah, it isn't as gorgeous as Galacticron or as stimulating as Bilcord, but something about the simplistic shading here and flat colors actually gives it a very appealing look to me that I don't normally get from anything else with this look. The animation looks great and everything about the presentation bangs. Vader looks slick and his lightsaber glows wonderfully in the dark. The Among Us tails looks fantastic and the shot of Vader stopping it is also amazing looking. And Padme, okay, we can ignore that one. But again, it's the writing. The writing is so good, both dialogue and choreography. This is the only episode of Death Battle that makes a lightsaber feel like a lightsaber. And it's not just a magic blocking stick or a boot kickable stick or a glowy stick that can be matched by keys, knives, or farming equipment. He doesn't hit you and make you go slightly ouchies like you were Jonathan Yautja. He hits Obito with that fucker, and literally any time it has a ton of impact. Even when it literally doesn't hurt him because of his eyeball powers. Couldn't buy? Nice try, dickhead. Truth-seeking orbs? Get fucked. You ain't never ballin' as much as Vader, and he's ballin' with a straight line. And oh god, the flow of progression is so good! Vader immediately stabs Obito and very quickly establishes himself as a monster! Obito tries what he can, but none of it works physically, so he tries to resort to psychological combat and attempt to win through bypassing physical means with Kamui, to which Vader stops fucking around and destroys his vacuum cleaner eye. Like, it's only after this point that Obito's gone a bit angry that he goes all out and realizes he's in some deep shit. He goes into his Jubito form, not just so that he can actually keep up with the monster that just tanked the Tail Beast Bomb after condensing it with his bare hands, but also to set up the Infinite Tsukuyomi as his primary objective. after finding out that Vader is a person like himself who's been broken like himself. This is exactly what the "he's just like me" line from Todoroki vs. Zuko wishes it was. A character realizing the mirror he's staring at without needing to explicitly tell us, and also having that actually affect his emotions and his actions to dictate the course of the fight. The fight's writing is just so fucking good. Things don't just happen so they can check off powers from a list, they happen for a reason. Why does Vader throw his lightsaber? Well, because he's hard to see right now, and that's a good way to catch him off guard. Why does Obito summon the Ten Tails? So he can power up and bring out the infinite Tsukuyomi. Why does Vader force push here? Well, he can see Obito is trying to do something and he only has one hand free, and what Obito is trying to do is push Vader back to free himself from the lightsaber because he has no leverage otherwise in that position. It just is so good, down to the fact that Vader only ever uses both hands in one moment. Every other point in the fight he uses one hand for his saber and one from the Force. He never two-hands the saber or uses both hands for the Force, aside from when he has to stop the biggest fuck-office attack that gets thrown. Or the fact that Obito begins with his mask on, so he's still pretending to be Madara, but when it's broken and he realizes there's no point, he goes back to his normal voice, and then his voice changes again when it's altered in state of Jubito. Or the fact that this episode has like tangible battle damage, mostly. Vader like loses part of his helmet, his leg, his arm, and the rest of his helmet and keeps on going. He feels like an unstoppable juggernaut that Obito needs to use all of his abilities to keep up with. It's great. Or the fact that Vader was about to win, but the reason he didn't in this moment was because of his anger and rage and hubris, so he chose to taunt his enemy and instill fear in him, giving the guy just the amount of time he needed for the infinite Tsukuyomi to finish blooming. Like, you know what's wrong with this fight? You know what it got wrong? Obito randomly loses his sleeve at one point. He regrows his eye in Ten Tails form, which is an animation error. Death Battle have admitted it. They've admitted it. I don't need you running in to defend them when they don't feel insecure enough to cry about it themselves. Two of the models look a bit shit, and the truth-seeking orbs look too metallic and Pokeball-like. That's it. All very minor visual problems. Oh, and I think Obito's DNA sword killing Vader is a bit abrupt and kinda cruel, but that's not necessarily a problem as much as something that gives me a different vibe from what the ending is intending. Like, the way Tsukuyomi works is that every second in real time is worth 3 days within the Genjutsu. So Obito basically let Vader have like a month or two of paradise, wished him a better life in the next world, and then killed him in a way that destroyed his soul so he could not come back the way he normally would if Obito just standardly nuked him. So I don't really read this as Obito being a nice guy, I read this as Obito trying to be nice and then really fucking it up. Also, the impact itself is just really funny to me for some reason. Like, Jesus Christ, what an episode that bangs on all cylinders, takes no quarter, holds nothing back. It's here to fucking bring you on a ride and you're gonna like it, because it's a great ride. Okay, yeah, the conclusion's kind of not the best either, but that's a lot of this season. Not many episodes escaped this problem until we got to the tail. That said, can we please make this the last Star Wars episode for a while that takes place in the other side's locations? Like, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Bobblefeet, and Dank Father all showed up using a ship and someone else's home. Only Lucas Squawker and Anakin Smeghead in his first episode are in an actual Star Wars location, and Booby Fast, but who cares about that episode? Vader Obito is an undeniable banger, and I can't wait to see them bring back Star Wars with a non-Force user with no lightsaber to explore other parts of this great franchise instead of being somehow only half as creatively tunnel vision as the franchise itself.
Let me get a minute. Hey, let me get one too. Hey, let me hold one.
Yeah, you get that right there. What the dog doing?
Oh my god, what a shock. Scooby vs. Courage is like one of the best episodes Death Battle has ever done. Death Battle's analyses tend to be pretty unfunny, but strangely this one is just, it's one of the more amusing ones. It's fun, I like it. It makes me chuckle sometimes, aside from the cutaways. And they did a great job pacing this. It starts silly and goofy with all the people, and then breaks into when the mask didn't come off and the monsters became real, building up to all the crazy shit. Then with Courage's analysis, it wraps back around with the ending that finishes off both characters' analyses flawlessly. It's really good shit, and the editing is, to break the record further, really fucking good. But the fight is just so unique and creative. Not only is the actual fight itself fun, with some gorgeous looking hand-drawn animation, great compositing onto 3D backgrounds, and some fun interactions like the boxing glove thumb war, Courage ripping himself in half just to dodge a laser, these bitches spinning timing with Courage as the third member so hard it destroys the screen whiz and boomstick while watching the fight on. But also it just has some great writing. Courage and Scooby are friends, they know each other, and they get along, and they only fight because Courage tried to make Scooby deal with the big monster so he didn't have to. Scoobit, not being a fan of the nostalgia critic and preferring the angry video game nerd, decided to go thug on his ass and pick a fight. There's a lot of goofy stuff, but it's really charming. Courage is worried about Scooby after he thinks he's killed him but is thankful he's okay. Scooby is grabbing stuff for disguises when they're running through halls. Godzilla shows up to say a swear word probably. Courage specifically tries to get around the fact the computer canonically does not know anything about Scooby by writing Great Dane with a speech impediment, and it all builds up to Scooby getting high on snacks and Wizen momenting on Courage and some of the rawest shit in the season. With Courage screaming at the fist so hard, it overpowers the audio track, stops the fist in its place, and shatters Scooby's giant body, leading to him crashing on Scourge. Scourge? What an insane mixture of fun comedy, creativity, and pure awesome. The track is great and works perfectly. I love the voice acting, the claymation monster looks really cool and adds a lot of personality, and like this episode managed to make Chaos God Scooby do a thing, and I fucking love it. The episode is in fact so good that I bet it almost single-handedly pushed Wily vs. Tom's chances of winning the tournament just enough that it did, because this shows us how good Death Battle can handle a silly Toon Force cartoon fight, even if it's going to be a very different one to that one. And the ending with Eustace getting yonked and a yummy animation that sends him straight to Jesus and getting us a draw. I love that they actually went out of the way to explain why it was a draw too, which is a first for the show, given the other 3 stalemates got no explanation at the best of times. This one didn't even just explain it well, but also did so while specifying how it would be this way even without the canonical crossover equaling stats. Top to bottom, beginning to end, it's hard to even say more about this episode because it wears its quality on its sleeve. It doesn't offer you some deep analysis with a ton of character depth or a fight with very smart writing that has each character planning and preparing for what's about to come and thinking about what their opponent is, and it doesn't have a conclusion that unpacks all the relevant lore and story. It's just straight up an unambiguous banger that says, you want wacky, creative cartoon fun? You're getting it. And what more could you possibly want?
What I want you to do is admit that triangles have 3 sides. Can you do that? Well, obviously some people have different opinions on that.
Oh right, this. It astounds me how an episode like Bill Cipher vs. Discord can exist. Everything front to back is bordering on perfect with this entire episode. We begin with an amazing analysis for Bill Cipher, amazing editing, easily among the best, no, outright the best in the whole show. Bill's analysis is flawless, aside from maybe the cutaway, which I can see not being everyone's cup of tea, even though I liked it. It goes over his story, powers, and what he's done perfectly. Character, how his story ended, the vibe is on point. Same with Discord's. My Little Pony finally got an analysis that was good. Character development for Boomstick and a very fun tone, and as opposed to the eerie, creepy undertone of Bill's analysis, because Discord's plays into his silliness and fun. Again, I can see the cutaway not being for everyone, but I liked it. I love both of these analyses, both on their own and together. There are a ton of references, memes, and love letters to the community, amazing edits, ending both on the differing notes of one being hopeful that the fucker is gone, and the other being thankful that he has changed and become better. And the fight, my god, the fight. A lot of death battles can just feel like 2 guys show up and they fight, but this is one of the few that really feels like it tells a story that takes place in a larger world. Bill started Weird Mageddon in Equestria, and I'm glad that everyone unanimously agrees that the one he tricked into letting him in was Spike. I don't just want to go through the whole fight talking about everything again, but it's so hard not to. It starts with bangers, great lines, a beautiful set that we barely even get to see. A characterful intro that plays into the ending with Bill not even acknowledging Discord as a threat, but just making a joke at his expense, and only acting once he gets pied. While Discord is thinking about others and worrying about them, getting an idea how to save them even though he likely won't make it out, and writing a letter for Fluttershy just in case it all goes south. Bill smacking Discord out is funny and looks great, as is the excess of Discord's random ice cream attack. There's this bad pun, and Bill even plays into it with a rim shot. Before we get the insanely good world spinning shot, everything going wacky, lasers going around, visually amazing, all the references are here, and they all lead up to a Discord who looks torn straight out of the show, giving us the first and only funny Bill Cipher Dorito joke ever made, before Bill literally blows his mind and Discord is fine. Once they go into the weirdness bubble and it changes art style from sprites to claymation to rubber hose to a fucking puppet fight that's really fun, and gives us Eldritch Horror Discord even, I love that. I said it before, but Discord going full Eldritch Horror like Bill isn't playing into his strengths. But here he's doing something that is technically an Eldritch horrific thing if it was animated, but in this style, it kind of works. We get more references to Bendy Cuphead and Macho Man Kool-Aid Man, Bill has a gun and Bill kin shifts, Discord gives a noogie, and the whole ending is amazing. Like from the moment you notice they did not leave through a weirdness bubble, but rather Discord snapped them and the portal is different, you can pick up clues that something is amiss. The sky is different, everything is unrotated, the sky crack is gone, the monsters too, though the crack does show up later, but it looks different than normal. Everything looks off, but Bill doesn't even notice, because Discord has successfully pissed him off enough to only focus on him. And to an extent, it works as a fourth wall break, because the viewers likely not notice the changes, because they were focusing too much on Discord and Bill. There's a fun fourth wall gag, they smack each other with toys of each other, almost spelling out how they're toying with each other. The checkers joke is super on point, and the Mindscape moment is peak death battle. Discord's ghost is a bit jankily animated, but it does not distract from how gorgeous the Mindscape looks, and the characterfulness of this sequence. Discord dropping the word die is fucking raw when you consider how often it was used in 9 seasons of My Little Pony. Bill's response and anger growing giant and Discord hitting him, causing him to go into his death animation, only to then drop the single rawest line in the season, shatter his own eye as he turns 3-dimensional to show how pissed he really is, reaching into his own head. He steals Discord so he can't escape his grasp with any powers and rips him out of his face with his hand. But if any line was going to be more raw than Bill's, it would be Discord's, as he reveals what he's done. That he's brought Bill into the nightmare realm as the dimensional rift was closing. By the time Bill noticed, it was too late. Discord died, but he saved his friends, and that's what really matters. Bill is trapped again, and while he may still plague some other world, Equestria is safe. Fucking, what an episode. The ending part with Bill looks fucking amazing too, I should say. It's amazing. My only problem with the conclusion is that they kind of used a weird argument against the bell. I would have liked if they let that be a plus for Discord so it didn't look so one-sided. And yeah, using the Starlight Glimmer clip to describe Discord, like, letting his guard down is weird, but, you know, it is what it is, and the conclusion's still great. Episodes like this don't just happen, they don't just come by all the time. This was truly a standout work of Death Battle, one of the best episodes they've ever done, my all-time second favorite, and something so fundamentally fantastic as an episode, a love letter to both shows, and a work of animation, but also as a thank you to a community that frankly did not deserve something so loving. A god tier episode with god tier characters, and a perfect episode for me to finish my ranking of such a perfect season. What a season. To me, this is a season that holds a lot of negative baggage. This was a bad year for me, not just because of the Versus community being trash, but generally life was doing the life thing. The community just doubled down and made it worse than it would have been. In fact, for a while, this was my all-time least favorite season just because I couldn't associate it with anything positive because of my own emotions. And like, I'm not someone good with emotional control. My emotions are erratic and they change at the drop of a hat sometimes. I struggle to alter them and I struggle to understand them. It's who I am. And everyone who makes fun of me for that is, I mean, yeah, you're right, but dickhead. Even now, I don't have any strong positive attachment to the season as a complete package. But what I do have is the ability to appreciate what it is. I may not have strong feelings for the overall season, but I do for the episodes. Banger after banger. Many amazing, truly breathtaking works, with the episodes I like the least still being good, which is an undeniable achievement. They've set the bar high, and no shame if season 11 doesn't live up to this one. This is nothing I'd want more for a 10th season of a show I love. Much love to everyone who worked on this season, or the whole history of the show, who edited, wrote, researched, animated, voiced, directed, did the SFX, VFX, did the sprite work, touch-ups after the fact, so much as aided a little bit sporadically. You've all done amazing work this year, and I know for a fact you will continue in the future as the series goes on into a new season. Keep on keeping on. We're all in support of you, and our love for a series we hold dear will never fade and never die. And that concludes the ranking of Season 10. I really hope it didn't seem like I was rushing too fast, though I was a little bit, because I was genuinely... Ow, I hit my mic. Really concerned. I had family coming over from interstate, and you know, I hope you can forgive me for not going 5 minutes for each segment, because I wanted to get this done and be able to spend some time with family, because I haven't seen them for half a decade, maybe more even. I hope you can forgive me for that. It just is what it is. Plus, I am very worried about copyright. I know people don't like that... I dropped something. No, people don't care about that. I know people don't like when I have to like repeat clips over and over in reviews, but like with the way Rooster Teeth, or I guess YouTube handles copyright, and the fact that Rooster Teeth don't seem to give a shit, And I had to specify Rooster Teeth, not the guys behind Death Battle, because they're all great guys. I know them. And gals. To be clear, I've talked to a lot of them. They're all amazing. That I've talked to at least. And, like, I know it's not them, but Rooster Teeth, half the time they don't seem to give a shit when you send them a message saying, "Oi, this should not be copyright blasted." They'll be like, "Eh, fuck you." So I'm hopeful that this ranking will be okay, and not have any issues, because if it does, then you're gonna see a lot more, like, my hand-drawn thumbnails showing up on screen to cover it, sort of thing. I hope you guys like that too. I kind of speed drew that, because I had the time when the computer wasn't working, and I wanted to make it a bit more special. And I also forgot Phoenix Raven hilariously on the first draft of it, so I had to kind of do them after the fact, but, like, there was room on the outskirts of the thumbnail, so they fit in perfectly. Cheers to anyone who clocked that there was a big open space that two characters could have fit in the version before I showed Guts Dimitri in it, because I did kind of want to leave that as a surprise, that I went and watched it, because, you know, hey, I wanted to. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed the ranking. I know almost none of you agree with every placement, which is totally okay. When you're dealing with something like this, you gotta come to expect that. Almost no two people are gonna have the exact same ranking. Tell me what your ranking is below, tell me what you thought about every episode. Try to be civil, this is a great season. Instead of attacking others for their opinion, let's try celebrating the opinions we have ourselves, you know? So yeah. And thank you to all my patrons scrolling by right now. You supported me throughout the year. Some of you supported me more recently, came on, and some of you left, and that's completely okay if you don't have the dosh to hand over. If you don't want to, it's completely okay. You're not getting much out of it from me, except access to my patron-only Discord, which, you know, not everyone's gonna be like, that's worth the cost. And I understand. And thank you, I will say again, to Kitty Calamari for making the model that you've been seeing this entire year and last year, I believe. So yeah. And of course, if you go to my Patreon Discord, you'll be able to make me say stupid things. Last season, I asked people what quotes from the season they liked the most and they wanted me to do, and this time they did it too. I asked the same thing too, so let's see what I get. Now, I'm gonna try to do this in, like, the actual thing, but also the way they want me to, so if I fuck one up, hopefully I won't fuck the other one up.
Should I bark too? I'm getting real tired of you.
I was gonna say Amogus hair and I couldn't make this up.
Should I bark too? I'm getting real tired of your pets.
Should I bark too? I'm getting real tired of your pets.
We may be evenly matched, Bill, but I've seen your show, my two-dimensional nuisance, and I know how you die.
Fuck you!
Through all this huggy-wuggy, skibbity-wibbity rubbish, there's one thing you never quite understood. I'm the Rizzler.
You know what's getting me? It's not the line! It's the fucking frame! It's the fucking screenshot that's getting me! Why do you look like that, though?
You're liberated from hell. Find peace in the next life. Dickhead!
I hope I'm allowed to say that on YouTube.
Watch me come alive!
The sponsor, I don't know if I'm allowed to even joke about that when actually having a sponsor.
Well, it was worth a try. But still, I'm surprised you don't recognize your old home.
Morty! Oh, it's funny being in the class clown until you... headshot! Yeah!
No.
You've got a stupid hat, and frankly, that bow tie doesn't suit you.
What?! I think I still got some room for dessert.
Let's attempt making a load micro.
Beep! Buddy, you are sick freak.
I don't know, that's probably a good thing, I'm just not getting there.
I'm the Onceler,
and I don't want... I'm thinking about the screen cap.
Whoa! Why did you get hurt, injury?
Bruce,
It's been 5 years. You still owe me a $16. Fuck off. You gotta go. No, I'm staying.
I am an all-seeing God!
Oh, Reggie, I am an all-seeing God!
An all-reeing rod?
You are not qualified to work with the fourth wall.
Nope, no, I can't. Alright, that was that. Yeah. I realized there was a little problem with keeping the Gus Dimitri thing a secret, is that no one gave me a Gus Dimitri quote, but that's not the other one. I didn't get a single quote from any of the Marvel DC episodes. Let me see if I can remember what I did not get a quote from. Okay. I didn't get a quote from Scooby Courage, but I did, get requests to do their voices, so I guess that kind of counts. Nothing from the last 2 episodes. I guess nothing from Chosen Born, but the only option there is prepare to die, which I guess I just did. As in the line, not like I just prepared. Okay, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a lovely day. I hope you had a lovely year, and I hope you have another lovely year coming up. I have no idea if I'll get any other videos out for the end of the year, so I wish you all happy holidays, no matter what you celebrate. Even if you don't celebrate, I still hope you have a great time leading up to the end of the year. Yeah, hope it's all wonderful, and I'll see you next year in 2024, and we'll see what Death Battle's got cooking for us there. And of course, before I go, thank you to everyone who worked on Death Battle this year. I know I already said it, but thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for giving us an amazing year. And if any one of you who worked on this season are watching this, I've already thanked you 3-4 times. All criticisms are made in good faith from my part. I did love this season in terms of the episodes, and any problems I have with the season overall are not a result of Death Battle itself. It's just not been the best of years, but hey, shit happens, you know? Shit happens, so I'll see you next time. Listen, enough of the goodbyes, just fuck off already and go be with your families!